Strait Islanders. Thank you. People's past, present and emerging. So that reminder also said to me that we will be recording today's event. So I just thought I'd let everybody know that that will be happening. I would also like to acknowledge the Mayor of the City Council, Councillor Anthony Tran, the Maribyrnong councillors, some who are attending at the moment, the Maribyrnong City Councillor CEO Celia Haddock, and the Maribyrnong Councillor Director of Infrastructure and Services, Patrick Jess. So I'd like to just hand over to the Mayor, Councillor Anthony Tran, to share a few words.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maribel. Thank you for thank you for opening up and being our facilitator for tonight. Before I continue, I also would like to offer my respects to the elders of these traditional lands, and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples past, present and emerging. Let me first begin by saying that I continue to applaud the community and such a large number of people from the community for being here with us tonight to continue the consultation process. This is absolutely an opportunity for us to discuss the master planning process for McIvor Reserve, and it's an even better opportunity for not just the council laws, but the council staff, being the Chief Executive Officer and the relevant director, to share information about where the project is at, and most importantly, what the next steps are, and to, of course, answer any questions or inquiries yourselves might still have about the potential for an indoor sports facility on the site. I might re-emphasize that it's the potential. We know that McIvor Reserve, and not just McIvor Reserve specifically, but open space in general, is well loved by our community, and there has been a lot of community interest specifically in this proposal in relation to the improvements and the enhancements as part of the master plan process. But let me caveat that with the fact that there is a significant shortfall of indoor sports facilities in the city of Maribyrnong, and the staff feel, as well as the councillors, that it was important to bring yourselves on the journey as we started to explore the options for a potential location. Potential locations which included McIvor Reserve, but not limited to only McIvor. But please be assured, and I can only re-emphasize this, that we are still in extremely early stages of this process, and I want to reiterate the fact that no decisions have been made about this project. Let me repeat that there is no decision that has been made, no formal decision has been made yet. As this project will come to councillors for decision in the coming months, I will not be part of the panel answering questions tonight. And that's a part of standard practice, as councillors must maintain neutral until the night of decision making. But I do look forward to hearing from our community this evening. But I'd like to hand over to our CEO, Celia Haddock, to say a few words herself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening and welcome everyone. As the Mayor noted, this is just the beginning of our conversation, so we're still in the early stages of this process with McIvor Reserve. We know many of you have questions about both the master plan, the process, and whether there is any potential for an indoor sports facility at the site. And as the Mayor has reiterated, there are no plans to put anything there. There's just been discussions around what might be possible. I really want to assure you that we intend to answer as many of your questions as we can today, but because no decisions have been made, we may not have the level of detail that you seek at this time. I want to assure you that should Council decide there is merit in exploring any ideas further, we'll provide further detailed information to the community and an opportunity for feedback. So I'll now hand back to you, Maribel. Thank you. You're on mute, Maribel.
I'm mute. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Celia, for handing back over. Before we hand over to Paul Jane, who's going to share a presentation giving you information of where the project is at, I'd just like to run through a couple of housekeeping things for this forum to make it efficient. The forum's going to close at 8 p.m. today, and we have a number of people who are, well, we have a large number of people who are likely to ask a lot of questions. So in order to provide a really fair opportunity for people to contribute, clarify, and be part of today, we've really asked everyone to ask one question. And if there's a need for a clarifying question with that question, that's okay. So think about your most pressing question and think about what's actually been asked so that we don't get a repeat of things that come up. If there's an opportunity, we'll go for second round questions, but as you can imagine, with a number of people on the call, that may be unlikely. So today we want to make sure that the forum remains constructive, respectful. We ask you to keep your mute on the whole time while speaking and refrain from speaking over other people. If you've already asked, if you've heard the questions being asked, don't repeat it. Just make sure that we've got enough time to canvass new ideas that are coming through or new questions and clarifying questions. Remember, this forum is really part of an early engagement process, and the master plan has not been drafted. And it's an opportunity really just to collect thoughts and ideas for the purpose of what's going to go into the master plan. So please remember, this forum is about the master plan and how it's coming together. So please, other issues, other priorities, let's keep them out of this forum. Constructive criticism, great. Personal attacks, misleading arguments really don't help. So let's keep everything professional and above board so that we can really get to the core of what the issues are across the board. We don't expect these things to occur. However, should they and we have a difficult situation, we have the capacity to move people out of the forum, and I'm really hoping that that is not the case. So with that intention and all those things, I'd like to introduce the Recreation and Open Space Manager, Paul Jane, who's going to provide an overview of the project. So over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Maribel, and yeah, thank you everybody for the introductions. We just want to go into a little bit of background here today regarding McIvor Reserve and some of the previous thoughts and previous strategies that have gone into helping create a view of the space at the moment, and supposed to speak to what a lot of the feedback we've had from the community at the moment. So there's no doubt McIvor Reserve plays an important role in the provision of sport and recreation, but equally a valuable piece of open space for the community. It attracts visitors from across Maribyrnong and indeed a broader catchment beyond that. It's a home to a number of sporting codes, 12 sporting clubs themselves, which host 3,500 members. So it's a significant portion of activity, and it's a place where a lot of people play within the region. It's also a really valued piece of open space for casual users. It's a designated on-leash zone park or off-leash zone. It has a park there. It's a children's playground. It's a barbecue. And I think over COVID, that need for open space has really shone through in the local community. So in terms of the future of the reserve, so we need to, understanding all the context and the use of the reserve, we need to start to plan for what it looks like in the future. Maribyrnong is growing at a significant rate. We're looking at 150,000 people by 2041, doubling the population of Yarraville itself. Now that increased demand puts a lot more demand on open space and recreation services and the facilities to support that. And so we need to start planning for that in terms of how we service that community into the future. As an example, between 2017 and 2019, pre-COVID, we had a 25% growth in those 2 years in outdoor sporting club membership across the municipality. Match that with a 78% growth in women's participation. We've seen women's AFL take off in recent years. That means, you know, if you consider another 50% of the population playing those sports, that's another equal reserve to match that that we have at the moment. That's already a piece of precious open space. Matching that is a surge that we've seen in the appreciation for open space, particularly during COVID, where people have really embraced their local neighbourhoods. So a lot of people have been stuck there, but they've walked out and probably, you know, began to explore those local spaces more than they ever have. So the planning for McIvor Reserve, it plays and will continue to play a critical role in the provision of recreation and open space within the south-west region of the municipality. But we do know that at the moment, if we're going to we're going to maintain that, we've got to have some shade structures to support both built and natural to support play in that space. And with climate change, that becomes equally important. Seating, lighting. So a lot of the lighting there isn't energy efficient. It's not up to current specs. It has spill. So we need to upgrade the lighting. The grounds, the irrigation and the drainage need to be upgraded. So they've actually got grounds that have been able to be played on all year round, rather than as they are at the moment. They don't have those or that irrigation and that drainage dynamic. So as soon as they reach their, I suppose, maximum play or start to degrade during winter, they're left there until the summer months where we can get them growth and get some growth and restored. It needs public toilets, and the pavilions for the existing users don't meet the current demands. I spoke about women's participation before. A lot of these facilities were built in the 70s and 80s and don't meet the current provisions. I was lucky to spend enough time at the Footscray Soccer Club this morning and had a great walk around that facility. And whilst that's a significant facility, there's still a lot can be done around that space, and that club's been quite proactive in bringing that to the table.
Hockey, Paul, hockey.
In terms of the master plan process, so it's an evolving document. So master plans represent the thinking, the best thinking at the time, but they evolved. The best thinking 10 years ago was around male facilities that service football. That world has changed now. So they represent the best thinking at the time. They map in the community aspirations and the stakeholder aspirations. So it's really important that comes to life. They evolve, and it's that transition of organisational strategy. So everything from the city plan down to our environmental policies, our open space strategy, our recreation strategies, they map in and formulate that in a local basis. So it's a local transition of that. And through that process, there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that come across in conflict that need to be worked through, and some strategic decisions need to be made through that process. But it's really the local translation of all of that policy and strategy work that Council has endorsed. Community input to date. There's been early conversations with the community, and that's essentially forms part of the strategic thinking. So what are the community's hopes and desires for this space? What do they see? And how can that inform the draft document? What are the hopes and aspirations of the hockey club, of the soccer club, of the cricket club, of the bowls club? I've missed probably quite a few in that space of those 12 organisations there. But what are their hopes and aspirations for this reserve? And what are the aspirations for the community we don't have at the moment? When we spoke about the population of Yarraville doubling, what are their future aspirations? What's that going to look like? What's tomorrow's community want to see in this space? So that will all start to inform the foundation or the issues and opportunities that we'll see within that site. And then we'll be coming back to engage the community again when we take all those issues and opportunities and start to form that into a strategy. That strategy comes to council. As the mayor mentioned before, council's decision-making process in this. They take the community aspirations on board. They rely on the officers to provide the strategy and underlying thinking behind that, and then think about what the community's direction are, and then go back out to the community in terms of this process to check what the strategy looks like, and then come into the delivery phase. So once again, there's going to be quite a number of touch points here with the community into the future. So just a timeline here in terms of a master plan timeline process. So you've got there from January to January, it's a year span. It starts off with the scoping of the master plan. So identifying the issues, what is the strategic environment that this piece of parcel of land sits in. We appoint a team to take that on, and then we do a stakeholder analysis. So who's involved in this space? Then we start that engagement. So we see community views. We understand, what the desires are of the community, the issues and opportunities that we see in this space. So we talk to the stakeholders, we talk to the community, we find out everything, and hopefully we capture everything in that big bucket of opportunity and issues, so that we can start to then form and shape the master plan. So we consider all that feedback. we shape the strategic options, map those options in, consider the impacts and the mitigations of those. So there may be impacts as a consequence of some of the work that we do, but we have to think about the mitigations and what are the opportunity around that as well. And then we have a set of strategic choices that need to be made. And that's the tough stuff, where the strategic choices need to be made, because you can't fulfill every desire. And then we undertake our preliminary due diligence as well. So we don't move forward until there's a level of due diligence. We don't recommend something if it's not achievable in the long term. Once that strategy or that formation of the strategy thinking is done, we seek feedback on that. So we've come up with a plan once we've considered all the feedback, and we once again seek the community's thoughts on what's this plan, what are their feedback on that plan. We take that feedback and then we move that into the council space for formal endorsement of that plan, taking on board all of the community views. Where we are at the moment is in the blue square at engagement. So we haven't actually formed any strategy at this point in time. At this point, I'm just going to hand over to Pat Jess, our Director of Infrastructure Services, to talk about some of the examples of other work that we've done in Maribyrnong that you might be aware of. Pat.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, we thought it might be helpful just to provide our most recent example of the Recreation Reserve Master Plan, just for those who aren't sure how it works. We've got an example of Shorten and Barrett Reserve here in West Footscray, and this is an image of what is currently there, actually. And this is where we're at with the McIvor Reserve in terms of identifying issues and opportunities and ways to improve the reserve for the future. And some of the challenges are quite similar in this example as we have at McIvor. We've got, even a worst case at Shorten Reserve, non-compliant facilities were a challenge. You can see the shape of the oval there. It's hard to call that an oval. Infrastructure in poor condition, quite inefficient use of space overall across the two sites, and again, increasing population and participation rates. And you can see there, some expansive areas with lots of car parking and asphalt and some sort of awkward positioning of infrastructure there as well. So next slide, please, Paul. And then we went through the next phase of, once we did hear what everyone had to say, we started to look at some options and looked at things like movement and transport, open space and tree canopy and how we're providing for that, formal and informal recreation, and also being environmentally sensitive in our design as well. Next slide, please, Paul. And so what we try to achieve, and we think we did, and this plan has been adopted by council, is providing a balance of all those needs and meeting as many of those challenges as we could through this process. So now we actually increased the open space through this master planning process, and it reminds me it's quite similar to this process in terms of some of the debate in the community, I guess, in terms of the different needs and wants. We were able to meet all of those needs. Not everyone got exactly what they wanted, but we're able to achieve a balance of a mix of those priorities. So 100 more trees than what are currently there is proposed to being planted, more open space. We consolidate the building infrastructure. So went down from 3 buildings into 1 on Barrett Reserve in particular. We're proposing to close a road as part of that redevelopment, and we're able to provide fit for purpose sporting and recreation infrastructure as well. And this is yet to be funded, so it's a futuristic plan, and we do have plans on how we intend to fund this. But just an example of an end product, even though we're in a very early stage right now with McIvor, this is the type of thing that we're trying to reach in terms of outcomes. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Pat. And people who know that space, it was a 20-metre deep quarry. I was looking at some photos of it today, so that's certainly transformational. So in terms of the indoor strategy itself, so to talk about its genesis and where it comes from, access to indoor multi-court facilities is a critical issue within the municipality itself. There was a study done in 2018 which identified the immediate need for 4 to 6 courts to service the city in the short term, with an additional up to 12 courts in the next 25 years. This study that Maribyrnong initiated has been equally backed up by a study that the IMAP councils have done as well, which identified the need for some 20 additional courts within the municipality, and that mapped those across all the inner Melbourne councils as well. And there was a significant demand for indoor sports across the board. McIvor Reserve was one of 11 potential locations considered as part of that. Out of those locations, further investigations have found that we're undertaking further investigations into 2 particular sites. McIvor is one of those. 6 were deemed not viable for a host of reasons. And I suppose importantly, not one of the sites in itself can accommodate all the future indoor sports needs. So essentially it's going to be a satellite model with a number of facilities built throughout the municipality to address that need in the future. In terms of what that looks like graphically, you've got the 2 spots that are under investigation are noted in green there in terms of the map of Maribyrnong, being the one at the Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre, an opportunity there, particularly to work with the Sports Academy, and then there's McIvor Reserve, so servicing each end of the municipality. The ones in the red have been explored and either considered not viable for expansion. So some of those sites have existing facilities, but we considered whether they were able to expand or not viable at all. And then there's some other sites in terms of long term, what they consider, so the immigration site in Maidstone that DOT currently or have purchased recently, the defence site and the hospital site. So that's the former hospital site, not the new hospital site. So once again, an opportunity in the future when government comes to step away from those particular sites. Just some key stats on basketball itself as a sport. The state average for basketball participation is 3.5% of the population are playing basketball. In Maribyrnong, it's 1.5%. There's a direct nexus between those participating and their access to facilities. And what we're seeing that is a real link in terms of that participation. Netball, there's not much netball played at all. We've only got one facility that has the capability to play netball and that's at Whitten Oval. So netball's almost non-existent as an indoor sport within the municipality. And other sports that are booming across the state in terms of indoor, such as futsal, indoor soccer, they're only private facilities and there's not much play in that space. So there's a whole range of sports that aren't played as a consequence of not having the space to play them. In terms of open space, here's an excerpt from our open space strategy itself. The map on the left is the overlay of open space throughout Maribyrnong. You can see the areas of green that are mapped in where there's a catchment and people have access to open space. Then you can see the areas that don't have anything. They're areas that have been identified as deficient, and we're looking to acquire open space in those areas as part of our open space strategy. Yarraville itself has 13% open space within it, so it's probably one of the higher zones within the municipality. Modern growth zones acquire 10% of open space, of usable open space through their developer contributions. And in terms of the gap analysis down the bottom there, you can see Yarraville itself, so the small segment in those areas that are covered. So you've got the active sport areas that are there and covered, and equally you've got those environmental corridors along Stony Creek. And why is McIvor Reserve in the mix? So its land zoning allows that to be considered. So it's public park and recreation zone. Its ownership is with council, so it's not Crown land, it's council freehold land. It's designated within our open space strategies, municipal open space, and the definitions there. And I suppose municipal open space is primarily there for structured sporting facilities or other recreation and social facilities, and attracts people from their local neighbourhoods and across the suburbs. So there's a significant catchment actually beyond the local suburb itself. And that's it from me. So back to you, Maribel.
Thank you, Paul, for that section. I guess that brings us to the end of the formal presentations, and now we're into the Q&A part of the evening, and it's time to hear questions from the community. So our process is going to be really simple. If you have a question, please let yourself be known on the Maribyrnong site council chat box there, and flag to the team that you would like to ask a question. Sorry. And then basically those will come through as a request, and based on those, I will refer them to either to Celia, Haddock, or to Patrick, Jess, depending on the type of question. Our mayor and our councillors are here listening, and they will be final decision makers in the process. But at the moment, they're really just listening unless there is something, a burning question as a whole. Remember, with the number of people that we have on the call tonight, we're asking you to ask one question and a follow-up only if you require it. And that will give every participant a chance to get involved. And please remain on mute when you're not speaking. That will make things very easy for all of us. So I'm having a look at my chat box here. I'm hearing that Juliet Taylor has a question. So Juliet, if you would be kind enough to take yourself off mute and ask whatever question you have of the councillors.
Hello. Yes, thank you, everybody. Wave if you can hear me. Thank you, Michael Clark. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. I've been a ratepayer in this area for over 25 years. I live in Benbow Street. Already the traffic from sports in McIvor Reserve is significant down Benbow Street. We have a lot of traffic. We also have a primary school. The local council on my behest has also spent a lot of money in controlling traffic. My question is this: what consideration is council going to give to the amount of additional car traffic coming down local streets and a primary school as a result of an indoor sports centre? Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. Patrick, I think that might be one for you.
Sure, yeah, thanks for the question. So as mentioned earlier, we're in the early stages, very first stage, in fact, of talking with the community about potential improvements at McIvor Reserve. So we have not yet done a traffic impact assessment at this stage of the process, but that is something that we absolutely will be doing, regardless of whether there's an indoor stadium as part of that proposal or not. We'll be undertaking a traffic impact assessment that will give us all the data we need to determine amounts of traffic and how that needs to be managed, and that'll be shared with the community as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the answer.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Juliet, for that. Next, I'd like to invite Greg Randall to ask his question. So please make yourself known.
Hi, Greg Randall, also a resident of Benbow Street and resident and ratepayer of Maribyrnong for over 20 years. I'd like to follow up on Paul Jane's statements before, and just one related issue. Paul, you stated that council identified a critical need for indoor stadiums. What do you mean by that? And what are the risks of not proceeding? And you also quoted demand needs that are at odds with one another. One, the 2018 study, 4 to 6 needed. The 2016 study said 18 needed. Now, given the cost of building these, the difference between those two numbers is in the region of $80 to $120 million. So I'm saying, what do you mean by critical? What are the disbenefits? And what are the risks of not proceeding? What will happen if it's critical?
Thanks, Greg. That's a great question. So Patrick, that might be up to you to answer.
Sure, yes, I can. Thanks for the question. So council has a responsibility to provide a whole range of services to its community, and provision of facilities for organised sport is one of those core responsibilities. So in terms of if we didn't provide access to courts or facilities that meet the need and demand, well, ultimately we wouldn't be delivering on our core role and responsibility. So whether we class that as critical or not, we're not meeting the needs of our community among the range of services we should be providing. And ultimately, they'll need to either go elsewhere and look outside the municipality, which is not a feasible option for many people. And we think it's something that we absolutely should be trying to deliver. And sorry, the second part of your question there was?
There's a disparity between the numbers that Paul was mentioning in terms of the demand. One was from the 2018 study that was saying we need 4 to 6.
Sure.
The 2016 study was saying 18. The financial difference between that is $80 to $120 million. It's a really significant community investment. And if I had to take another step, how given the federal government has shown no interest whatsoever in supporting Maribyrnong Council in terms of projects like Next, and the state government has capped its funding for indoor stadiums through its application program at $2.5 million. That's a lot of money. How do you propose to fund it? And what numbers are you going to use?
So in terms of the need and demand numbers, it's not an exact science, but what we do know is the study that we undertook, and then the study that the IMAP councils undertook in terms of sport and recreation facility requirements, both indicated, whether you look at a specific number for each or not, that we need more courts, that we haven't got enough. And ultimately, we are unable to provide the full amount regardless. We know it's quite unachievable to provide 20 courts. We certainly don't have the space. And we have those same challenges with sports fields, open space in general. In terms of what the ideal number of provision is, if you were to build a city from scratch, or examples where there's expansion municipalities that in growth areas, they're able to provide those large expanses. We've got the challenges that we're in a municipality that is locked. Our boundary is the boundary. We're not expanding in terms of the size, and we've got a growing population. So we've got to make the best of what we've got in terms of our existing infrastructure and make sure that's high quality. And then we've got to look for opportunities for expansion as well at the same time. So our model for provision of indoor courts, there's two ways you can go about it essentially in a planning sense. You can have one large centralised facility. So some municipalities might have a 12-court stadium in one spot, or you can have it a multi-site, across the different areas of the municipality from a geographic perspective. And that's the model that we've got and opting for. We're looking for a north, south, east, west type of model where you'd have 4 to 6 size court stadiums across those different areas. So we've got multiple ways that we can look to fund that. Certainly federal government, state government funding is one of those, and we'll be also looking to fund a large portion ourselves as well.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Greg, for that. Celia, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Yes, just I'd like to make a comment on the money side of things and how we might pay for it. Like, how do we pay for anything? I know somebody has sent through a query around what is IMAP, which is actually now called M9 just this year. And those are the 9 inner city councils that join a border with Melbourne City Council. So we're one of those. And we have a lot of similarities and some differences, but we work closely with those 9. In terms of funding any form of sports and recreation facility, we need to obviously plan that over several years. And you're right, there's not always a lot of, certainly virtually no federal money, and sometimes state money. There are small buckets, and there are also larger buckets that from time to time can become available. But council also has the option to borrow. So obviously within the sustainability limits, with the civic and community hub, which we're about to start building at the town hall, we have borrowed $10 million there. So it's a matter of council balancing up what it can afford to do. We do have a small capital reserve, but obviously if you spend that all in 1 year, then you have one facility and you can't do anything else for the next 3 to 5 years. So it is a balancing act, and the councillors need to consider that through their budget process each year and through their advocacy process. So I can tell you that tomorrow the mayor, the deputy mayor and myself are meeting with the treasurer to discuss a number of priorities that the council has for the coming year and years. So we are advocating all the time, and it is a balancing act. We never have the full amount of money ourselves.
Great. Thanks, Celia, for that. And thank you for your question, Greg. I hope that answered it. Our next question, I will invite, let's see if I get this name right, Chady Ritherden to ask their question. Chady, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
And
Welcome.
thank you very much. I was just trying to turn my camera on, but it didn't work, so oh well. Just in, so I'm a dog owner, and I've been living in this area since 2014. And I know nothing about sport, so I'm sorry if I'm ignorant about the needs of sporting people. That said, I am pro having an area where sport people can do sports ball and not get rained and hailed on. I think that's awesome. When the fire at West Footscray, the factory happened, Stony Creek became toxic, and that meant the Crookshank off-lead dog area was not able to be used for about 1.5 years, 2 years. Stadiums take time to be built. They don't happen quickly. And so when the Crookshank became unavailable, all the other dog parks in the area, Hanson Reserve, McIvor, Yarraville Gardens, all became suddenly overpopulated with dog owners because everyone who used to use Crookshank now had to go somewhere else. If you take away the McIvor sporting fields and the McIvor dog park, the people that currently use those facilities are going to have to go over somewhere else. And that means dog owners are going to go to other dog areas and they're going to be overcrowded. The sporting people are going to need to go to other areas. Possibly that means Hanson Reserve, which, by the way, is also another dog off-lead area. So we're going to have a crowding of sporting facilities and yet more crowding of dog park areas. So what I'd like to know is the council willing to commit to making another dedicated dog park and possibly sporting field area for the people that use McIvor to use while the stadium is being built? Are we able to get those replacement facilities made first, is what I'm asking.
Great question. Patrick, your wisdom is required here.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So first of all, this process isn't about taking away anything. It's about looking at ways to improve McIvor Reserve to meet a whole range of needs of our community. And all of the needs are important. Not one need is more important than another. And we're well aware of the importance of spaces to exercise your dogs, whether it's off-lead open areas or dog parks that are enclosed. We understand and that there is a need for that, and that's come through in the initial phase of engagement. So we understand that's a need that we need to meet through this process as well. How that looks at McIvor Reserve, we don't know yet because we haven't begun that process of mapping out master plan options. What we do know is that there's an absolute requirement for it, and we intend for it to be remain part of McIvor Reserve. The logistics of how that occurs in terms of once construction commences to implement the master plan, I simply can't answer that at this point either, other than we'll absolutely try and make it as simple as possible, and be mindful of that existing users along the construction period, even when it may happen.
Great, thanks for that. And I guess this is a great forum and opportunity for just those things to be brought to light, and for the team that's designed to be able to look at those questions and consider them as in the process going forward. So thank you very much for that question. Sorry.
A follow-up question?
On the same topic, by all means.
Yeah, given the fact that, as I said, construction doesn't happen instantly, there's going to be delays in when new facilities are going to become available. Is the council able to commit to putting fencing between off-lead areas and on-lead areas within the existing dog parks within Maribyrnong, who are going to receive extra burden and extra strain and extra population when one of the dog parks is taken away?
Look, honestly, I can't commit to anything like that right now at this present time, but certainly we'll be making sure, as I mentioned earlier, that we have, a minimal impact on the various users of the reserve, even when construction occurs. We really are sort of far too early in the process to be able to answer those questions definitively. But as always, we'll be mindful of meeting the needs of our community throughout any development.
Could I make a comment as well? Just that, I mean, Patrick's right. We still don't know what will go there, but I do know that we've had quite a large increased dog ownership. I think it's a minimum of 25%. I think anybody who didn't have a dog in COVID has now got one. And so we are acutely aware that we need more dog parks, not less. So I just say that we do understand and support the need for dog parks.
I know I'm not meant to be sticking out this, but I may have a suggestion, JD, that with your question, it may be actually better suited as a community submission for next year's budget. I think that this has merit potentially in the future, but rather than having it being asked in this forum, I would suggest you put in a bid for next year's budget for council to potentially put funding aside to fence off other off-leash dog parks in general. I think that's a better suited option than simply just asking it here. Just a mere suggestion, not saying that that's the only option.
So thank you for that. So again, just this, it's been heard, it's an idea, so let's let it be considered the way it needs to be considered. So thank you for that. I'd like to invite Amanda Barron. You have a question, I believe.
Yes, hi. My question's about the other sites that were in the mix and the budget for schematic drawings at McIvor. So if there's other sites that are still in the mix, why is there only budget for drawings at McIvor? Why have you budgeted ratepayers' money to do drawings of something that you haven't decided yet? And will you release the information as to why the other sites were discounted?
So yes, we will, and I believe we already have released information through the frequently asked questions, and that information is.
I don't think you've released detailed information to each site and why it was discounted.
Okay, well, okay.
We'd like to see that.
Into that. Yep. Take that on notice and have a look at what we can supply in that regard. In terms of the budget question, so we've had a budget over a number of years in doing site investigation at a number of sites, and that involves looking at site conditions and concept layouts and those types of things. The reason McIvor Reserve was listed in this year's budget was because that's the site we're looking at right now. We've used that same budget line, changed the name, just to give you the technicality, to McIvor, because that's the site that's currently under investigation.
But it still doesn't really answer the question as to why you're doing schematic drawings of an indoor stadium when you say you haven't decided to do that yet. Would you not be better off going through the process of deciding what you're going to do with the master plan before you start spending ratepayers' money on paying for drawings?
Yes, correct. Yeah, and we haven't commenced schematic, and we won't be commencing schematic until council endorse officers to commence schematic design. So,
but it's already in the budget.
We don't have to spend. Can I just add? We don't have to. We obviously, the money's there. We have money in the budget allocated to things. If we don't proceed with it, we use it for something else. We go back to council, get a resolution on what it's used for, if it's a material amount. So, we're not just spending money for the sake of it.
Okay.
Amanda, I might flag a good example of that is the Footscray Park. Usually at the end.
They ask who's speaking.
I think that's just background noise.
Sorry, that was the mayor speaking.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't, I didn't know you.
No, that's okay. I might just flag you, mate. A good example of that example that Celia's given us is the New Year's fireworks that usually go off every year. For the past years, obviously, we could not do that. So the budget had been reallocated towards supporting local businesses. Obviously, during the 2 years, it was one of the most difficult periods. So council are committed to supporting our local businesses through the reallocation. So that's just a good example of where the money being reallocated for other purposes that wasn't spent.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I hope we answered your question there, Amanda.
Yeah, I would like that information about the other sites, please. Why they were discounted.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good time. Claire Shepherd, I believe you have a question and I'd like to invite you to ask your question.
Hi, thank you. My question is about whether or not the option to have an indoor stadium funded by a developer has been considered. So as a developer, there's a requirement to have a development contribution towards the something that the council deems worthy, usually money. Could it be envisaged that an indoor sporting facility be constructed as part of a larger development within the municipality?
Do you want to answer that, Celia?
Get the mute off.
Yes.
Yes, we do have developer levies, and developers have to pay. In fact, we've got our latest kind of formula for that is still with the state government, so we don't know what they're going to approve. But the developer levy is charged on new developments, and it's a percentage. For example, if it's apartments, it's a percentage per apartment, and the open space is assigned to somewhere within that precinct. It's not that the developer has to spend that money on a for example, indoor stadium within that development. So and the developer levy is not a large amount of money, we don't get the money until the development is sold. So it would be unlikely we would get the full money for a stadium, but yes, through the negotiations, we could look at a funding for sporting facilities through a contribution to sporting facilities through a developer levy, but those obviously also need to be signed off and be within the criteria that's set.
When we were defining the Stony Creek Rehabilitation Plan, it was suggested by the Maribyrnong Council Planning Group that a contribution could be made by industries who wanted to develop sites along the creek of actually handing over a parcel of land back to council to allow for more space between the boundaries of the industrial premises and the creek itself. So the suggestion was there that land could be handed to the council as part of a developer contribution rather than just cash money.
I can comment on that because I know exactly what you're talking about. The property owners with the property against the industrial owners against that Stony Creek would need to give us that land, and that is not something that they've agreed to. So I'm not actually sure, that was several years ago now, whether that's still, we would need to buy that land generally off them rather than them giving it to us. We could ask, but nothing's been forthcoming.
Okay. Thanks, Claire, for that question. Let me move across to Lee Smith Moy. Have I said that correctly? Lee, would you like to unmute?
Close.
Thank you.
Smith Moyer.
Smith Moyer, got it.
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to engage with the community and let us have our input. I'm not understanding the brown space, why we wouldn't be using brown space. I guess it's a financial thing. The council would have to buy back brown space. I'm not quite sure how that works. Someone may know. And there are also some green spaces that are kind of underutilised, like Hyde Street Reserve under the Westgate Bridge, which is, you know, an expanse of green space that's really not that utilised. So yeah, I guess that's what I'm asking.
Who's best placed?
Patrick might like to talk a little bit about how the open space strategy works and how we look at all of our open spaces.
Yes, yeah, happy to I guess respond specifically around site assessment. There's quite a number of criteria that we consider need to be met when thinking about where to put an indoor stadium or place an indoor stadium, and to, you know, meet the needs of a growing municipality. And we can't just think of the now, we need to think of future populations and where those populations might be, for example. And you know, when we think about ground spaces, you know, the financial reality is real. That's something we need to really consider in terms of the cost of purchasing land as opposed to using land that we already own. So that's a real factor that we must consider. We also have to think about things like, you know, a lot of those sites need remediation or, you know, need work done. So it's not as simple as just buying the land. It's that not always just easily, you know, developed for that type of use. Location, how far it's going to take people, you know, families, mum, dads and their kids to travel to these locations, often needing to travel somewhere else and drop one off and pick one up, and all those sorts of things that I'm sure many of you can understand. So, you know, it becomes limited in terms of available sites because there's so many things that we need to, or criteria that we need to meet. And so, yes, there might be some opportunities, some ground space opportunities, but there's also this opportunity that we're looking at as well that we think is quite worthy of considering. So, you know, we'll continue to look at all options. And as I said, it's not just one site that solves this challenge here. We've got a satellite approach to providing indoor facilities for our community, which means that we're looking for multiple sites across our municipality. And so, you know, that's how we're addressing this issue, or intending to address this issue.
Well, thank you for that, Patrick. I just think there are probably less utilised, even green spaces, let alone brown spaces, than McIvor. So that would just be my point.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. Appreciate that. Scott Walker, I believe you've got a question.
Hi, I'm a Bembo Street resident and I've been here for 20 years and also have 3 children who've played an enormous amount of basketball throughout that time, and not having a basketball stadium at McIvor was not an impediment to them playing basketball. They still continue to do so. So I'd just like to put that out there. So my question is what sort of process or how do we go about convincing the council that, or what process is put in place to convince the council that McIvor is not an appropriate site for the stadium and that we should keep the current green space? How do we do that?
Well, through this, if I could answer that, Maribel, and Patrick might want to add, obviously through this process, but I would reiterate, and I said this at the council meeting 2 weeks ago, council hasn't resolved to build an indoor stadium on McIvor Reserve. Yes, they're looking at it. Yes, we're also looking at the Maidstone Department of Transport site. Yes, we're also considering the current, but be soon to be the former hospital site, although there's a lot of contamination there, but it is a consideration. We're also looking at our MAC site, and then of course longer term, if the defence site and when the defence site is sold, that is also another possibility. But right now we need at least 4 more courts right now. We are hoping to build 2 at Rec West, but we're hoping that we will get some funding for that soon. And if not, we might need to fund that ourselves. But it's not. Yes, if it's, you know, the council's listening, so.
Sure, I appreciate.
It's very clear that nobody wants an indoor stadium on that site. Then we wouldn't bother doing the technical drawings or following that through.
Sure. I suppose my question is, I recognise you're going through a process, and I recognise you're considering other options. As part of your process of going through that, is there something specific that we can do? I mean, I'm here asking a question now, and I suppose I'm putting my views across. Is there, as your part of your consideration, is there any key criteria that would convince you that McIvor is not a great site, and we want to keep the current green space, and that another site may be a better option?
Well, I think it's just a matter of participating in this process. As Patrick said, or Paul, we're very early in the process. We haven't developed a draft master plan, and when we do, that would go back out to the community, and I can't tell you now whether or not that would have a proposed sports stadium in it. So
No,
it's very easy. Patrick, very early.
Just to add, yes, it is early stages. There is no decision before council. So I guess to answer your question right now, no, there isn't anything you can do in terms of forcing council into a decision, because there is not one before them, and we're in the early stages of a master planning process. And what as I said earlier, that will be considering a whole range of needs and feedback that we're receiving, and our intent will be to achieve a balanced outcome that meets those range of needs as much as possible. And we can't predict at this stage, although the first phase of consultation has indicated, what we expected, that people want to see open space protected and maximised, and trees, and we also see that people want to see sports facilities improved, and quite a few people have told us they would love to see an indoor stadium there as well. So our challenge now as officers is to consider all that feedback and provide council, our councillors, your elected representatives, with options to consider, and they'll consider those in the context of this comms and engagement process. So at the moment, we're just gathering information to inform our planning.
Sure. As part of the next stage of the process, as you go forward, will you include, I suppose, some decision points and I suppose make it clear what people need to, how people can, I suppose, influence the decision from a resident perspective?
Yeah. So there's Paul went through the engagement process we're going through. That'll be over a number of months. In a formal sense, it'll be through the council governance process of council meetings where decisions are made. But at the moment, we're in phase one. We'll go into phase two in terms of looking at options. We really haven't gone through all the data yet either, as we're still in the early stages. There was lots of feedback that we're considering. So there'll be a range of opportunities for people to continue to have their say and provide input throughout this process. And then ultimately, council will be considering that information as that progresses.
Okay. I suppose one final comment, I don't want to dominate, but that process that was laid out was very linear. There was no real point where it diverges to look at other things. So I think I'll just make a comment that if there's a decision point where that process looks at other options, that would give a much better appearance that you could influence the process.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, look, and it needs to be linear, but it needs to be flexible, just like tonight is. Tonight's forum wasn't part of the original engagement plan. We recognise that the community wanted to talk about this, and that's why we're doing tonight. So we'll continue to adapt as required. We haven't got a date set for the council meeting as such. It depends on how much more engagement we need to go through, and how we respond to the feedback we've got. But in a formal sense, it's the council meetings where decisions are made.
Okay, thank you.
And can I just add, it won't be one decision. So the first decision council will make when they're ready is to publish a draft master plan for comment. So we'll go through more engagement after that. So, and I don't know what that's, I actually don't know what that's going to have in it right now. And that then that will come back and it might go out again as a second draft. So it depends what the community feedback is.
So will that master plan just be for McIvor, or will it be for the alternative sites?
Well,
Just McIvor.
yeah, this is McIvor. This is the McIvor Reserve Master Plan. As part of other work we're doing, we're looking at other, we're looking at other sites for, we're looking at the sites for highball and where they might be. But the McIvor Master Plan, regardless of a highball strategy, we'd like to do this year.
So thanks for that. It sounds as though you've committed to be transparent in your process. You're doing this early engagement, which is not something that's been done too much before, early engagement to get feedback, and there will be a consultation process. So thank you for that. Sharon Swab, I believe you've got a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you, council and councillors, for organising this chat. It's greatly appreciated. The council has stated that the stadium facility will not impact sports fields, that the council land occupied by the bowling club could be linked to the facility, that a stadium entrance could be made as part of the bowls club, that a stadium would be up to 10,000 square metres and that no significant open space will be affected. A recent email from council has also specified that the bowling club property is not considered part of the McIvor's parkland. In addition, Mr. Jess stated that $67,000 has already been spent in relation to the McIvor Reserve Master Plan from the Recreation and Open Space budget. Contrary to what the council has maintained during communication so far, these facts combined point to an advanced plan regarding a site on the reserve, and $67,000 seems like a significant spend of public funds just to explore the appetite for an idea. How specifically have these funds been used? And has the council already had any sketches or drawings made for an indoor stadium facility on the reserve or the council land occupied by the Bowls Club?
Those sound like rather technical questions. So
how specifically have these funds been used, the $67,000? And has the council already had any sketches or drawings made for an indoor stadium facility on the reserve or the council land occupied by the Bowls Club?
I can answer that. So I'm not sure that the $67,000 has been spent, Sharon. I believe that's the amount that was awarded for the contract of the consultation services. So I don't think that's all been expended yet, though.
Okay.
If that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers the budget question. In terms of the question regarding the bowling club.
So has the council already had any sketches or drawings made for an indoor stadium facility on the reserve or the council land occupied by the Bowls Club? So has any sketches or drawings been made?
Yeah. So council officers draw sketches and analyse sites right across our municipality all the time, and we have had informal discussions with the bowling club about opportunities, just like we have with every other sporting club at McIvor Reserve, but they're informal, and I'm not at liberty to share the details of those conversations there between the bowling club and council staff. But we've done, across all of our recreation reserves, we're looking at ways to improve and maximise the use of space and meet a range of needs. That's not formally as part of this process, though. So, yeah, we've looked at how we can improve the bowling club, and we've looked at how we can improve a whole range of things at McIvor Reserve, but not in a formal sense. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, okay. As you know, I'm a very strong advocate for protecting open green space. And I note that the state government has in 2021 released a strategy for protecting regional space, calling it open space for everyone. And it's also in our planning scheme at 19.2. Now, the land to the rear of Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre is not used. It's suitable and would not impact on well-used public parkland. The benefits of the land behind MAC is that it is well serviced by public transport buses and trams, and also a bus, tram and train network. If it's interconnected with the Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre, which is a recommendation across strategies of connecting aquatic centres with such facilities as basketball and indoor netball, it will also allow our city and our residents to have off-peak use for one of the actual basketball courts for, say, additional gym classes. It allows opportunities for the actual sporting clubs using the basketball facilities to utilise the gyms and actually become members of MAC. So there seems to be significant benefits there. So in that respect, if it's not already been done to a greater detail, I would call on council and councillors to seek for a review of the site at High Point behind the Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre.
Yeah, thank you. I can comment to that. So I agree with you that Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre is a site that we should be investigating, and we are. There's great opportunity there with the aquatic facilities and the gymnasium, as you've said, to potentially have a sports and aquatic centre in one, and some potential opportunities with the sports academy there as well, adjacent site. So absolutely agree.
Yeah,
what I
and
will say though is that it's not an either or. So we don't think we can accommodate all the needs of our high ball sports at that site. And I mentioned earlier the satellite model, that we need to be looking right across the municipality in terms of how we provide for these range of indoor sports needs.
Yeah,
so yes, we're looking at the aquatic centre as well, but we're also looking at other sites.
Thanks, Patrick, for that, and for that answer.
Sorry, I just want to get one more thing on the record.
Sharon, before you do, I just you've asked a number of questions, so I just want to.
I just want to get one more thing on the record, please. Discussions with Westgate Basketball Association and Maribyrnong Basketball Association in August 2018 indicated that participation had increased rapidly, particularly in the Footscray area. The market research supports the need for additional indoor sports courts in the Footscray area. That is in the ordinary council meeting, minutes of meeting, 21st of August 2018, agenda item 9.2, page 29. We should be looking at getting an indoor stadium behind MAC in the short term and looking at a more alternative site, not McIvor, for the longer term. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharon, for that. Okay, and so going forward, I'm going to invite the next person, and just could people sort of really just ask one question if possible, otherwise, because it's 7:15 and it's really going to be tight to get everyone's voices into the room. I've got a lot of questions here, if that's okay. Was there any comments that you or Patrick or Celia want to make? You're fine. Okay.
Not for me.
Great. Lisa O'Farrell, I invite you to come to the mic.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
We can, thank you.
The plan for the plans just shown for McIvor Reserve labelled it as a free and open space. I want council to explain how building a stadium and a car park on this continues to call that free and open space for public use.
Thank you for that question. Patrick?
Well, again, I go back to my earlier comments about our objectives of trying to achieve a balanced outcome through this process and meeting a whole range of needs. So we're hearing it loud and clear. Open space is highly valued, and we intend to keep that in the forefront of our minds through this planning process. There's also a whole range of other needs that are highly valued, and we're trying to accommodate all of those through this process.
Thanks, Patrick. I think that answers it. Mark Balkan, do you have a question you wish to ask the panel?
Yeah, it's Mark Walsh. Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Good. There's a couple of things. I just want to quickly go back to what Councillor Tran said. We submitted in the budget 2021 to get some modifications under the dog park, and we're still waiting. So I wouldn't hold my breath on asking things for that. Now, my understanding is there was still some money left from the Westgate Tunnel project. There's a brown area the other side of the Arrowell Gardens near Somerville Road. Could we acquire the money from that and purchase the land there to build on? Because there's no green space there. It's a brown area. They're using brown space for the tunnel project, and it'll be free in 2 years.
Could I maybe answer that, Mark? Thanks for your question. The last allocation of funds from the Westgate Tunnel, you're correct, has not been completely spent yet, but that money was not for council. So that was for sporting clubs and community groups who needed to, who put in a submission, most of them with council support for a resource. So that is the money that hasn't been spent. There is another round coming for community organisations to apply to the Westgate Tunnel, and there will be some more funds, we hope, for the Westgate Tunnel for council. So there's no cash, if you like, right now holding out for council to use from the Westgate Tunnel.
But so will we look at that site or not? We won't look at the site that they're using presently?
Are you talking about the spoil shed, the area there? Yeah,
Yes.
So we have actually, well, council has approached both the local member and the Westgate Tunnel in terms of that shed and whether we might get it. And that's not going to be possible. And there is, as we understand it, and I don't have the full detail, but there is a lot of contamination associated with that shed.
So does it get cleaned up? Otherwise, we've got a contaminated area that we're living in.
I agree.
So if they have to clean it up, then, but if they have to clean it up,
cleaned up,
yeah, then it'll be free to use, won't it?
some of that is on Port of Melbourne land over there. So I'd have to come back to you. Can I take that one on notice, Maribel?
Definitely.
I think I know the exact area you're talking about, Mark, but if you want to email me with any more details, please do.
Yeah, not a problem.
So it's Celia Haddock, .haddock@maribyrnong.vic.gov.au.
That's easy. Thanks, Celia.
Okay.
And Mark, there's also a, at the end of the session, we will be having an email available to this group of people to get any questions that we don't get answered. So make sure that you put it into there as well so it doesn't get missed.
I've put a few in already. So.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to move on to Nell Wilson. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. And again, I'd like to say thanks for the opportunity to pose questions direct as part of the conversation this evening. I've seen a number of sporting upgrades over the last 2 years in my area. I've seen Don McLean Reserve, I've seen Edwards Reserve, I've seen new cricket nets go up. Although somebody earlier said there was no new netball upgrades, I've seen one in Spotswood as part of the new tennis and netball court upgrade. And I'm curious about the amount of money that's being invested on green space compared to the upgrades to all the sporting facilities in the area. I don't know if anyone knows the budget comparisons that have been invested in the area compared to sport facility upgrades.
There's as part of the council's budget companion document, there was a description of how much was spent or how much we're spending this financial year across the range of asset types. I don't have that answer in front of me right away, but we can come back to you with that detail. I just will make one comment about open space is that from a planning perspective, we consider sports fields as open space also. So whilst they are used for organised sport, they're also used for a whole range of other uses. You can fly a kite there, have a picnic on a sports field. People walk their dogs. Some of our sports fields are designated as off-lead areas as well. So it's not one or the other. They're multi-use spaces. And we do try and plan for, across our range of assets. And I know you've asked a question about just open space and sports facilities there, but across our whole range of services, we try and make that as equitable as possible in terms of how funding is allocated.
Yeah, I just would make one final comment that a lot of the open space areas that you can walk dogs and have the facility have time restrictions. So the one near me, I can't walk my dog before 9 p.m. at night. McIvor is one of the few, if not the only area where there isn't a time restriction, where I can walk my dogs any time of day. And as you can imagine, only being able to walk animals after 9 p.m. at night or before 8 a.m. in the mornings, not great for people who work. So I just wanted to flag the fact that McIvor is only the one area that I'm aware of that there isn't a time constraint in terms of the open space. So that also needs to be recorded, please.
Sure.
Thanks, Nell.
Thank you.
Good comments to be bringing in during the engagement session. So thank you for those comments. Dale Brown, do you have, could you turn your mic on and ask your question, please?
Thank you, Maribel. Appreciate Council taking the time to take questions from the community on this. The questions I've got have actually been raised, although I don't think they've been clearly answered. To my mind, an indoor facility could readily be placed within any one of the numerous underused industrial areas and warehouses throughout the municipality. I appreciate that there's cost issues there and it's much more difficult to purchase a property than use something that's existing. But I think it's important to make the point that once you lose open space, and especially large green open space, you never get it back. No one ever takes a building and knocks it over and turns it back into green space. The core sports ovals and the active open space in McIvor Reserve are something like 6 hectares of open space. That's an extremely important community asset, and I think it's very important that that's not compromised through this process. So what I would ask is, while I fully support Council looking at putting in indoor stadiums and building new facilities, can you also give an assurance that that main sports oval area will be protected through this process and that you'll ensure that that's not compromised by those works? Because if that was to happen, what I'd be asking is, where is Council buying another 6 hectares of open space to replace it? And obviously that wouldn't be on the table. So just like to make that really clear.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just make a comment on the, I guess with the example of the Shorten Reserve, Barrett Reserve Master Plan, we actually did not, or we are proposing to, through that master plan that Council adopted, to demolish buildings and replace with open space. So we are looking for opportunities wherever we can to expand our open space network. I will say, as we're only in early stages of this process, obviously, but you know, we're also strongly aware that of the lack of sports fields and adequate sports fields that we've got, and that we need to increase those numbers, not decrease them. Same with open space. So yeah, certainly no intent to decrease those numbers as part of this process.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Patrick. Agree, that's important and fantastic to see you trying to get some more permeable space in Shorten Reserve. As a consultant, I'm working with Melbourne Water to try and figure out how to get more permeable space in private spaces. And as I'm sure you all appreciate, we're just losing green space left, right and centre in private realm. So whatever we can do in the public realm is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Sounds like green space is important to me.
Yep.
Sean Huntington, do you have a question for the panel?
Yes, thank you, Maribel, and thank you again for giving everyone an opportunity to have a voice tonight. I'm the president of Williamstown Cannons Basketball Club at Playing Westgate, to give some context, and we actually play in 2 municipalities. We play in Hobsons Bay and we also play in Maribyrnong, so our families are split into both areas. My question for the group is really around voices that we haven't heard tonight, and they're the voices of kids. One of the earlier speakers, Scott, mentioned that his children had the benefit of moving through the sport and playing the sport, which is great, and that's a fantastic experience for his family. But to me, in the timelines that have been outlined in tonight's meeting, if a stadium doesn't come forward soon at an appropriate place, there'll be a whole generation of children that will miss out. So I'm just wondering where the council is considering effectively the voiceless here tonight, because obviously all those children, and there's wait lists, we can't accommodate under 8s, for example, in the competition at the moment, which is at least about 100 children approximately. They'll be without the sport for a very long time. In fact, their whole playing careers probably. So The question's around timelines, and if a stadium doesn't get up in the very near future, how the council's considering the voices. Obviously, those voices do have families behind them, uncles, aunts, parents, etc. So my question's really about that. How are we considering the children's needs?
I might start with that, Patrick, just to say that, and thanks, Sean. And we have had a, not from your basketball association, but from Westgate Basketball Association, we have had quite a detailed submission to this process. And as part of that, Westgate have actually invited us to come down and continue our consultation process, you know, on a Friday night or Saturday during some of their games. And we're certainly going to take that up to hear from those young people. And it is very important that, as you say, they are the users, and we're acutely aware that in 20 years our population will have doubled, and we are a young population, we're not an old population, so it is going to be a whole lot of children that will miss out. So we need to find a site. We agree. Do you want to add anything, Patrick?
Yeah, no, thank you. In the interest of time, and there's been several follow-up questions, the only point I would make is that, and this is the reality of the experience, if you will, as a club president, when Hobson's Bay, when Altona Stadium was able to open up an extra 6 courts, and coming out of COVID, what I would leave you with is that the joy of those kids and the benefits for their mental health. It absolutely, I'm just hoping, and as you've said, Celia, there is going to be further consideration. I really hope that as a representative of those families that does come into play. So thank you for the time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. If you've got nothing to add there, Patrick, I'll move on to the next question. Or
no, thank you. Yeah, you can continue.
okay, great. Dean Kotsianis, do you have a question? Dean, are you online? We need to unmute you if you're there. Okay. I'll move on to the next one. I'll come back to Dean just in the event that he's having some technical difficulties. But Sam Lewison, do you have a question? Sam, are you there? Okay. Let me try. So the next question comes from Shari Levy.
I know. Oh.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Please ask a question.
I'll turn on, well, I was going to try to turn on my camera, but I don't know if my camera's on or not, but it's fine. I wanted to, I guess, first, thank you guys for hosting this forum. I think you finally heard the concern of the community about this issue, and the fact that people haven't, until now at least, felt particularly listened to. So again, thank you for this opportunity for everybody. As you know, I've been working with Friends of McIvor Reserve, and consequently I'm in a position of getting a lot of feedback from a lot of different people. People continue to be quite concerned about the fact that although we've completed a survey almost 2 months ago, there's been very little data that's actually come out, and the data that has come out from that has been quite stylized and summarized. And so I think really what I'm asking on, again, behalf of a number of people in the community is that the full suite of the results be released. And this isn't the first time I've asked for this, and it's not the first time anybody has asked for this. But this is a very significant question to a lot of people. And I think that right now there's been 3 different pieces of information really that's come out from, I've got a copy of the survey, the paper version of it right here. And there were 14 questions on it. And there were only 3 little boxes of data telling us very generally that most people exercise their dogs or themselves, watch sports, use the barbecue or the playground, and generally relax. which is not terribly useful information because that's essentially everything other than casual sports / ball games with friends that you had on your list. So of course, everybody's going to do those things because those are all the things one can do in the park right now. And then the second data point talks about around 3/4 of the survey identified as Yarraville residents, with another quarter immediate neighbors of the reserve. And we would like actually specific numbers as opposed to around and about, because I don't think that the community is necessarily very trusting that the information that they're getting is full and complete. So we would like specific data that shows how many people responded, said they were a neighbor of McIvor Reserve versus a resident of Yarraville versus a member of a sporting club that uses McIvor Reserve versus a supporter. You get the point. And additionally, if there's any way that anybody was able to indicate that they actually were somebody who doesn't use the reserve at all and was somebody that would like to use the reserve in the way of a basketball court. That might have been on question 3 where you could mark other, but there really wasn't anything on the survey that specifically asked that, unfortunately. The third data point that you guys provided stuff about was that there was, quote, almost equal, quote, support for and against the facility. And again, I think people want to know what is almost equal. Is it exactly 50-50? Is it 49-51? So they want the exact data. And additionally, it's quite important to everybody that I've talked to.
Shari, because you're providing a lot of really good information. My understanding is that whether you're going to supply the information with the draft master plan, but I don't know so is that your question? When will the data be released?
Given that we've got this forum opportunity, I think if I could actually express what it is that I'm hearing people actually want to know, so that when we get the data, that actually the data is what we want, because what we don't want is what we've gotten so far. So my point of this is that we also want to know how these responses vary depending on if you're a neighbor of McIvor Reserve versus a resident of Yarraville versus the other categories, because it seems like that can be broken down in a way that's going to better show, for example, how many neighbors of McIvor Reserve are all thumbs up about the stadium versus thumbs sideways versus thumbs down through each of those categories. Because while I understand that council has said that they're weighing all feedback equally, there's a lot of people that don't think that that's necessarily the right way to do it, because the people that are current users are impacted in a different way.
What I'm hearing is that you're looking for, your question is, when will the data be released? And will it have more detail in it? So maybe, Patrick, you can answer that.
Actually,
yeah. Do you want me to respond?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were lots of comments in there and lots of questions. I guess what I will say is that there is an endorsed communications and engagement plan that council has endorsed, and we've actually, recently updated our communications and engagement policy. That is, I would consider best practice by any measure. It's been through a very thorough process, and in terms of the steps that council have endorsed to go through as part of our comms and engagement process. So I'm very confident and comfortable with the steps we're going through and the way we're gathering information through this process. In terms of when that data is released of phase 1, our councillors have not seen information from phase 1 yet. And, I understand the request around timelines, but there is a lot of information to go through. And we are working diligently at that. And we hope to be able to present to council in the near future outcomes of that phase 1 engagement process. That will give us an indication of, what things people would like to see in terms of future opportunities at the reserve. But I'll also add, that's not a voting process. So yes, we'll have percentages of what people said and responded to, particularly for or against a indoor stadium as an example. But we don't simply go on those numbers and then say yes or no in terms of our recommendation to council. It's one consideration among a whole range of things. And Paul mentioned earlier our strategies and policies and a whole range of documents and information we use for this process. So hear loud and clear that the community wants more involvement and wants to see the information, we will be releasing the engagement report from phase 1, and will continue to be transparent throughout the whole process. But we have to be respectful that there is a process, an adopted process that we are obligated to go through. So, that's what we'll be doing through the remainder of the project.
Fantastic. I hope that answered your question, Shari. And if you've got any follow-up, then please put something through a little bit later. Let me move on in the interest of time, because we've only got 25 minutes remaining. We've got Amanda Hearn.
Hello. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak in this forum. I just wanted to follow up with a comment that you made, Mr. Jess. Are you suggesting that you might actually be looking to build a 6-court stadium at McIvor and another 6-court stadium at Melbourne Aquatic Centre? At the same time, this would be something a total between 60 and 70 million or more in basketball stadiums in the next year.
Certainly not in a year. It takes a lot longer than that. In terms of a stadium being viable, financially viable, in particular, you need about a minimum of 4 courts. So that's the minimum size we're looking at wherever the site may be, whether it's in our northern suburbs near the Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre or in southern, or wherever it might be. We're looking for a minimum 4 court sites, and Celia mentioned earlier around our the ways that we might fund these projects. There's some work to do in that space, and it certainly wouldn't all be done at once. There'd need to be a planned approach that's fiscally responsible and what we can afford.
Does that answer your question, Amanda?
Yes, I guess just to follow up with that, is there a time frame you are looking at then?
Depending on this process, where you would have heard earlier, some comments around the dire need for this from certainly some members of the community that they're in support of council delivering an indoor stadium somewhere. We're well aware of that. This is from a facility provision perspective. There's a significant gap. It takes time to construct a stadium. In my experience, from the stage we're at currently to when kids are running around using those spaces, and it's not just about basketball. There's a whole range of sports that it would accommodate. You're probably looking at a 5-year period from now until the facility being built.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I'm going to call back on Sam Lewison, who I believe is still online and may have had some technical issues. Sam, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for coming back to me. I think the questions have been asked probably in a number of different ways already. I'm fully in support of increasing sporting facilities and the building of an indoor stadium, but just are asking, why does it have to be at the expense of our limited green space and a dog park that is sort of loved and used by many already?
Right.
So my response to that is that we're hearing loud and clear the value that communities place in open space, and that's going to be obvious a key factor that we will be considering in any future developments at McIvor Reserve. So the intent will absolutely be to minimise impact on open space if indeed we are able to fit one there. But we are honestly at the really early stages. We've got some thoughts and ideas on how it could work, but we haven't started mapping it out yet. They're the things that council will need to consider, as in our council laws, once officers start preparing some options. And it may not work there. That's a legitimate outcome. It also may work, depending on how creative we can get with our design. So, we'll be working through that, understanding that absolutely the community values open space, and we need to be respectful of that.
So that message is loud and clear, trying to get that as much open space as possible. So great. We're sort of 20 minutes from close. So I'm going to keep going through the names that are in front of me. If your question has been asked, please feel free to say it's been covered so that we can keep getting very diverse questions into the room and keep that dialogue happening. So with that comment, Donna Hill, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, well, mine's coming from a totally different angle.
Right.
I'm a member of the Yarraville Footscray Bowling Club. I've been there for 11 years. The bowling club's been on the site for just over 50 years. It was established in 1967. We have approximately 150 members, plus social members, plus people who visit our club to enjoy our restaurant, plus barefoot bowlers, plus many others who utilise the club from time to time. Now, over those 50 plus years, we, the members, have sunk large amounts of money into the club with a view to continually improve it structurally, aesthetically, and socially. Now, we've heard a rumour at the latest AGM that if this grand plan goes ahead at McIvor, that our club will be demolished. We were horrified to hear that from our president only last Sunday. Now, if that does happen, if it is decided that McIvor will be the one that you choose, what will we be left with? What will happen to us? And where do we go? And what support will we receive?
That's a question for Patrick.
Thanks for your question. Yes. So again, I'm not sure what discussions that you've had within the club. What I can say is that again, we are aware of the importance of bowling as well, and lawn bowls, and we've had many discussions with the bowling club committee about improving that facility over the years. There's some challenges with the existing space, and I can say through this process there is no intent for bowling to be removed either. That's another need that we need to accommodate through this process. So, like I said earlier, we're always talking to our sporting clubs about how we can improve their facilities and help them to increase their participation. And it's one of our core roles as council. Again, hear loud and clear that bowling is important. We agree, and we intend to accommodate it into the future as well. Reserve.
And so, Patrick, would our president seem to think that maybe bowls might still go ahead, but we would lose a lot of our facilities? Would that happen in the grand plan?
If there was to be any sort of consideration of combining bowling into a facility, it would be it would be with the intent that the bowling club is better off. That's one of the underlying principles here, is that everyone's better off is what we're trying to achieve. So if there was any joint collaboration between the bowling club and council in provision of future facilities, it certainly wouldn't be at the bowling club's expense. It would be looking to help them continue to grow and increase membership, so that everyone benefits.
So final question. So, Patrick, if it did go ahead, would our club be demolished and rebuilt?
Too early to say. Again, we're in the really early stages, so we haven't got that far in terms of looking how it could work. I will say that the facility will be improved if it were to go ahead. That's the whole idea of the master plan, is to improve facilities for our growing population, hopefully increase participation across a whole range of users.
Can I just add to that, Donna? I hear what you're saying, and Patrick's made it clear there's nothing on the plan that says demolish the bowling club, but what we are interested in is improving facilities for everyone. So you'll notice that whenever we do work on any reserves or sports pavilions, we're improving them. We're not making them worse. So we're nowhere near looking at whether the bowling club would be demolished or not, but we want to keep bowling on that site, and we'd like to work with you to improve your facilities.
Great. Thank you. And it's early stages yet, so more will come along the way. Thank you, Donna, for that question. Penny Mill, have I said that correctly?
Hello, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, so I do represent Westgate Basketball. I've been involved for years, and I was a Footscray resident. I was almost born in West Footscray in the house there. Anyway, regardless, my question is more around with McIvor. If McIvor Reserve Six Sports Stadium doesn't go ahead, obviously we've been looking for, for some sort of stadium to be built since that document was released in 2018 saying that we need courts. Now, how long ago that was, you can add it up, but how much longer will we have to wait is the question, because we are now hiring primary schools, using old halls and stuff, and it's just not viable anymore. People are travelling all over Footscray area to try to get to a basketball game or a program, and we really need something stable. So the sooner the better. Where would be great. Doesn't matter where, in our opinion. But yeah, we need to look after these kids that are waiting. So yeah, how much longer do we have to wait?
Yes,
When is it going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's achievable within a 5-year time frame to have a new facility. Things need to fall in place for that to happen, but I think it is achievable, and that's what we're aspiring to. Maybe even sooner if we can. But you're just providing a buffer there of a 5-year period. I will say that where is important though. It's we think that is quite important in terms of ensuring the viability of the facility and accommodating the populations, existing populations and the growing populations as well.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Penny. Fiorella, Fabio, do you have your question for the team, for the panel?
Oh, hi. Thanks for calling on me. Thanks for allowing us to ask questions in this forum. I am a resident of Yarraville, been here 18 years, really enjoy McIvor, and actually, particularly during lockdown when Crookshank was really kind of densely populated with a lot of foot traffic, dog traffic and bike traffic, I really found that McIvor was a lovely sense of just a slower pace and still kind of access to an area that kind of was less intense, not just in terms of the density of people there, but also just not being surrounded by really busy roads the way Yarraville Gardens and other pocket parks are. So, I mean, my experience with McIvor has even included seeing some tawny frogmouths there on a couple of occasions, which was actually a lovely experience for self and family. And I think McIvor offers that opportunity quite distinct from other parks in Yarraville. So obviously, I'm one of those that really highly prize the green open space and would like to see the balancing of interests as not meaning that we actually compromise something that is very difficult to reinstate and replace. So I guess coming back to, and I realise there have been some comments about the unsuitability of other brown spaces, and 3 factors being the cost of purchasing land, the cost of remediating land, and potentially the implications of location and transport. It seems to me that there is a lot of public opinion saying that these 3 factors are not necessarily more important than preserving green open space. And
what question would you want to ask the panel?
My question is, why can't we just build up on some of these brown spaces, particularly ones that may be vacated soon, such as the hospital? Why can't you build up, use what's there, repurpose it to get the courts that you require? I would imagine that we're looking at indoor courts that require obviously you know, enough open space to fit like at least, you know, you can do 2 courts per hospital level or something. I don't understand why that would be any less feasible than actually compromising the open space. So can you explain that to me as you would a child, because I don't get it.
So I guess, going back to the criteria that's required to accommodate this type of facility, it's not just about the space, it's how it fits together. So there's a component brief that guides our design, certain number of courts, certain number of change rooms, public toilet facilities, hospitality venue potentially. So all those types of things that go into making a centre like that viable and providing for a whole range of experiences within it. And so I said earlier that it's not just as simple as grabbing some land, some brown space somewhere. I wish it was, but it's actually not. There's a lot to consider. We are considering, and we have put as expression of interest in for the old Footscray Hospital site. That's a very competitive environment. There's lots of different interests there on how to use that space as well. So that's not something we can just immediately do or claim. We don't own it, obviously. So, McIvor Reserve, why are we looking at McIvor? Because it's, as we said earlier, it's zoned for this exact purpose. It's zoned as a recreation site that includes built infrastructure like indoor stadiums. And it ticks a lot of boxes in terms of the criteria that need to be met. And we know, I'm not just discounting what you said about the importance of that, and the value you place on McIvor Reserve, and it's really important that we capture those mixes of experience in any of our planning and thinking as well. So I'm not discounting that. But I just do want to be clear on why we're investigating in the first place, because it stacks up in a lot of ways. And so we're at the stage of just testing that idea with the community and seeing if it's worthy of discussing further.
I'll follow up to that, and I'll make it brief. You go back to the zoning of the park, and where I'm confused is that you have explained that open green space includes open field, but actually what's being proposed is an indoor complex with hospitality and other things to make it viable. So I'm not clear on how that suits the zone that you have previously defined as open fields.
Yeah, you might have read that or misspoken perhaps, but it's PPRZ, so Public Park and Recreation Zone, which does incorporate the built environment. So whether it's sports pavilions, a stadium with this nature, that fits within that zoning. Not all open spaces do. So you wouldn't build something like this at Cruikshank Park, for example. Slightly different. However, this space, is, does fit within this type of proposal, I guess.
Thank you. So it sounds as though we're exploring multiple options, looking at their zoning and seeing what's possible, considering the whole landscape in the whole region. So that's the important thing. Thank you for your question, Fiorella. Interest of time, we've probably got time for another 2 questions, and then we'll probably have to start winding up. So let me invite Jake Keough to ask his question.
Thanks very much, Maribel. It's Keough, the GH silent, but I know it's probably hard tonight pronouncing names. It's all good. My name's Jake. I'm from Basketball Victoria, so I'm here to support the associations, but not really representing them, more so representing the kids and the basketballers. So just for your interest, we've got 500,000 basketballers in the state, and 40% of those are under the age of 14, and they're really important in this process. I guess the question to you, Patrick, is you spoke about the satellite approach, and I really do want to commend you from Basketball Victoria on that, especially in this community in lower socioeconomic areas. The satellite approach is very, very important because a lot of people don't have cars, low socioeconomic, cold communities, they can't actually travel 15, 20 minutes to go to a basketball stadium. So my question is, if this site isn't the appropriate site, where else in the south of the municipality will a stadium be built, knowing full well that it can't be built 15 minutes away because not everyone has access to a car or can afford to travel every day, and then we just lose them to sport for life. So where else in the south would you build it if you can't build it here?
Thanks for your question there. Look, we're really limited in options at the moment in the south. You know, if this wasn't to go through, we continue to look at options for the southern area. But at the moment, we don't have anything on the table to consider. So, yeah, that's as direct as I can answer that for you. It's we're looking at the one option in the south at the moment.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Jake?
Yeah, that does. Thanks, Patrick.
Okay, great. And final question for the day from Kylie Michael.
Hello, thank you so much for the opportunity. I guess it's a nice timely spot to say this. You've talked a lot tonight about the engagement process, and you've seen how interested and connected all the community is and all the sporting clubs to this area. You mentioned your community engagement strategy, and I've seen some councils using citizen juries, using the deliberative engagement principles and guides that the peak local government bodies have used. So my question is, will the council be using a deliberative engagement process to build trust and real transparency in the engagement process?
Perhaps I could comment on that first, Patrick, and thanks for your question, Kylie. And yes, the council, our council engagement policy, which you will find on our website, and that was actually put out for consultation twice at the beginning of this year. First one draft, and then we put the final out, and I think it was April or May. But we follow the IAP too, and many of our staff are trained in that training, and we have been a leading council in engagement. And yes, we use everything from, obviously sometimes because of risk you need to do inform, right up to the citizen jury. It depends on what the consultation is and what is required and what options are there. So anything is, we're not finished this phase yet. And when we put when we get the draft from McIvor, whatever it's got in it, we'll obviously be going back to our engagement policy to look at the best way to do that. So in short, yes, we do consider everything on the IAP2 spectrum, and hopefully we're making the right choices for different engagement opportunities.
Thank you. I mean, I just think from the complexity that we've talked about tonight and the remit for the master plan, having a citizen jury, I think, would be quite an effective way to get people more connected into the actual decision making rather than just being engaged along the way. So that's just my thoughts. And thanks again for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Collie, for your comments. So this sort of brings us to the wrap-up section for this evening. So firstly, thank you so much for all of you joining us and asking some great questions and providing some thought-provoking comments, both from Patrick, Councillor Patrick, and from Patrick and from Celia. Councillor Celia, do you have any final comments before we close?
Thanks, Maribel. And I just wanted to perhaps talk a little bit about the next steps, but firstly to thank everyone for joining us. I think it's been I've really enjoyed this evening. I wasn't sure what to expect. We had 182 people registered, so I think the community, you've done really well and patiently kind of worked through the questions. I'd particularly like to thank Patrick Jess, who I think has done a great job, very transparent and responding to people's questions very honestly, which is what we're trying to do. And thanking you, Maribel, as well for facilitating. I know Maribel's going to talk to you about if you have further questions where you might put them, but I think really my job here is just to thank everyone and perhaps hand to the Mayor, Councillor Tran, who might like to say a few words of thank you as well.
I'll try to be as quick as I can. I do apologise if I don't get through my apology. My laptop is on 10% and I don't have a charger on me. But I will say this, thank you to the community for coming out and And again, consulting with us, I know Celia said there was around 108, but when I looked at their participation, it was around 130, 140 different people on the Zoom call. And in that respect, it just goes to show how much the community really care, not just about open space, not just about basketball stadiums or highball stadiums, but anything that is in relation to the community. And there's nothing ever wrong with that, but being passionate or engaged with any part of the process at all. But I guess I will again reiterate the fact that to everyone here that this is only the beginning of the process, and that there will be many more opportunities for yourselves to share your views with us. And as Kylie asked before about that deliberative approach, and as Celia had mentioned as well, we will take, or the council staff will take the appropriate approaches needed to consult with the community on each step of the process. But once again, thank you so much, not just to the basketball associations for reaching out to us and to joining us tonight, but to all those residents who are passionate about this master plan as well. Again, thank you so much. Maribel, I might pass it back to yourself.
Thank you so much, Councillor Tran. And just to close, a final thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope that you were able to get some clarity around some of the questions that you might have had on this project. And I mean, me listening in, Patrick and Celia, you provided some great information along the way, so thank you so much. If anyone has any questions that have not been asked and you wanted to ask them, and I have got on the side, I think 16 or 18 questions still pending, so there's still a lot of interest. We have put please send your or email communityengagementmaribyrnong.vic.gov.au, and do that by Friday. Do that by Friday so that we can quickly answer these questions that are still burning for you or that you've had an interest in, and we can keep this conversation moving at a good pace, because the commitment to be open and transparent is totally and utterly what this team is about. So please do that. I also really wanted to acknowledge the tone, the respect, the information that we had here. So thank you so much, and look forward to the next opportunity that you can get together. So have a great night, and thank you very much to all. So farewell for the
Thanks,
evening.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.